Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of High Energy Keto Girl. And today's guest is Dr. Sandra Scheinbaum, who is the founder of the Functional Medicine Coaching Academy in collaboration with Dr. Mark Hyman's Institute for Functional Medicine. She's a clinical psychologist for over 35 years. She is an expert in positive psychology and mind-body medicine and the author of Functional Medicine Coaching, Stop Panic Attacks in 10 Easy Steps, and how to give clients the skills to stop panic attacks. She's passionate about transforming healthcare by training health coaches to help people become CEOs of their own health and succeed where traditional medicine often fails them. It has been a wonderful, wonderful chat with Dr. Sandi, and she has lots of takeaways that I hope that you can apply to your life. So let's go and say hello to Dr. Sandi. Hey everyone, welcome to High Energy Keto Girl, a podcast helping women to age stronger because it is never too late to get fit, be strong, and feel sexy. I'm your host, Tracy Gluhite, health coach and personal trainer and founder of highenergygirl.com. Each week, we will either have a guest interview, which will provide you encouragement or an actionable tip to help you age stronger, or I will do a solo episode. Please also join our awesome Facebook group called High Energy Girls, and I'm looking forward to see you on the inside of that group and hope you enjoy today's show. Guess what, everyone? My book is out. It is a revised and updated edition of a book I wrote 5 years ago called No Frickin' Way, 21 Days to Ditch the Diet and Lose Weight the Keto Way by Loving Yourself to Health. When I first wrote the original book, I was not a believer in the low-carb movement, but after all the years of research I've done, I am sold out for life. In this book, you will learn about all the lies you have been fed, how to engage in loving self-care, how to eat nourishing foods that provide massive energy, why the ketogenic diet is not a fad, how to heal your body through fasting, why you should move your body to get stronger, and how to create an empowering mindset. Start reading now and finally achieve the high energy and positive body image you deserve. Check it out on Kindle, on Amazon. And if you like it, please leave us a review because this will help more people find it. I really want to inspire people to not deprive themselves, but to nourish themselves with loving self-care and amazingly healthy food so that they can age stronger. Thank you so much, and I hope you enjoy it as much as I enjoyed writing it. Hey, Sandi, thanks so much for coming on the show today.
It's a pleasure to be with you.
Well, I have to admit, I was doing a little bit of stalking of you. So before we got, going here today, and I'm really, really excited about the work you're doing. So for the listeners that don't know you, why don't you tell them a little bit about yourself?
Sure. So, well, it's a long story because I'm old. But I've had various careers and passions in my life. And I started out thinking I was going to be a school teacher. And I spent some time there working with kids with special needs. But I was always loving learning and wanting to move on. And so I got a doctorate in clinical psychology and specialized in areas that at the time, we're talking late 70s, early 80s, and was considered radical, this idea of mind-body medicine, that the mind and body talked to one another, who knew, and that I was practicing positive psychology before that had a name. I was more focused on what's right with you than what's wrong with you. And of course, I was often not a great example personally because I would typically think about what's wrong. So I had some failures along the way, had run a group practice with some psychiatrists that didn't work out too well. We ended up having to shut our doors. And so this was in the early 90s. And I remember thinking, like, what am I going to do? This is such a failure experience. And so I went back to what I had been doing, which is sort of a private practice, solo practitioner. And because I love learning, I'd gone on. I was certified as a yoga instructor, and I had studied nutrition, taking whatever courses I could find in that area, and then happened upon the Institute for Functional Medicine. So I started taking their training modules, and these courses were for medical doctors. So the good thing, I did love learning and always had been good at studying. So I did take the exam. I was actually one of the few people who was not a licensed medical practitioner, but as a psychologist, it was rare to study functional medicine. Go their certification route. And I realized when I completed that training that it really wasn't appropriate as a psychologist. My license didn't allow me to practice functional medicine. But I went back to my roots, which was teaching. And so I took all of the principles that I had studied, that I had worked for so many years with patients, and put them all together and thought, okay, I can teach this. And this was a time when teaching health coaches started to emerge as a need. So the Institute for Functional Medicine became my partner, and I had another partner, and that is somebody who had worked with me, Elise. And so we developed Functional Medicine Coaching Academy. IFM's senior leadership and faculty were all on board. And so we have an online school. That was about 5 years ago, and I never, ever thought that I would reach the number of people that we have. We've trained over 2,000 coaches. We have a new class starting, and this is what I live for. This is my mission and purpose, to really help people on this journey towards wellness, to train people to go out. They all have a calling to serve others and help them to reach their health goals. So it's been super rewarding, and to be able to mentor others, to help them benefit from what I've learned along the way, whether it's how to build a business when you don't know anything about building a business, to how to thrive despite setbacks.
Cool. And where is that school located?
So this is online. So I just work from anywhere, which is one of the joys of coaching now. And increasingly, sessions are done virtually online. And so as a school, as a business, this is online. We have people who work for us in all over the world, Saudi Arabia and Australia, and we have students from all over the world as well.
Oh, that's cool. So there's no physical school. It's just everything's online.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. Yeah, and we're female owned. So, and we have, so it's been great to grow and do this with, in fact, somebody, an incoming student just said, well, yeah, I love that you're women who are running this company. So that was super great to hear.
Yeah, that's awesome. And so what type of topics do you guys cover as far as for functional medicine? What are what's your outline look like? What topics?
Yeah, so we don't have an agenda. We don't have a driving philosophy to say, we're only going to teach this particular way of eating, or we're only going to present this research. We follow the guidelines of the Institute for Functional Medicine, it's research-based. It's looking at what does the science tell us. But increasingly, what that science is telling us is personalized. In other words, there's no one-size-fits-all approach, whether
Sure.
It's to what to eat or how to exercise. It's based on who you are and taking into account your genetics, your environment, as well as your emotions, your reaction, what's giving you joy and what isn't. So that is really why coaching is heart-centered. It's so powerful because it's not like the coach comes in with an agenda and thinks, okay, I'm going to teach you how to follow this particular routine. It's really, where do you want to go on your journey? What fits for you, and how can I then support you and hold you accountable, help you develop these goals that might be baby steps to reach what you want. So the overlying philosophy of what we teach is how to be a coach, how to help someone to find out what matters most. What's their mission, their purpose, what gives them love and joy, and just be there for them. And then we pull in the elements of functional medicine, which are taught by senior faculty at the Institute for Functional Medicine, which is where you're really dialing down to root causes. But coaches are not medical doctors. They're not practitioners. So they are health coaches. And as health coaches, they can become board certified as health coaches, and we're an approved school for working. Our graduates can sit for that national board exam. But what that means is that they abide by the scope of practice of coaches. So we teach those functional medicine principles, and we integrate that with positive psychology, which is what you need to thrive and find well-being, psychology of eating, and mind-body medicine, and functional nutrition principles.
Okay, cool. That's actually what I was asking about. Not as far as the methodology that you're teaching, as far as like I practice a keto lifestyle with fasting and things, but more like, the meditation piece, or like the lab work piece, or, just all the little components. I'm really like right now for my group, it's self-care because it's February, right? So it's like loving yourself and doing daily practices that actually show self-care to you, so you can nourish yourself, So
that is, that is, so important to have that self-care component. And part of it is mindfulness, is knowing what fits for you and what doesn't.
Yeah, absolutely. So what's one of your favorite things or your favorite practices that you like to work on?
Well, I love to take myself away. In other words, I love to do things that are often involving movement. So one of my top character strengths is zest. So if you said, okay, Sandy, you go to a meditation and you for an hour just sit and meditate, I would be going out of my mind. I would be like, get me out of here. Because how I meditate is through dance, for example, and through walking. And I happen to live in an area in the desert, and so I can just go out and take a walk, a hike, and feel great. But what I also love is going to a tap dancing class or ballet. And that's what takes me away. And particularly in ballet, that's very calming and meditative. So I may spend 20 seconds doing some slow, deep breathing, because I've taught breathing techniques for many, many years when I was a psychologist. So I know how to do a quick coherence, which comes from heart rate variability training, warm my heart, feel love, and just have that total transformation in a very brief period of time. So I find moments of stillness, and then I find moments where I just have tremendous energy. It's music. I love music theater, and so that takes me away, listening to show tunes. I do work. I'm at a treadmill desk. Actually, right now it's not moving because it would be too noisy, but I do my best writing actually when I have loud music on and I'm walking on my treadmill desk.
Oh my gosh, that's so funny. I love music, but when I'm doing any work, like at my computer, I don't want any noise.
Yep.
That's funny, but I love your idea of the dancing and the movement. I'm right with you. I can meditate 15 minutes a day and then I'm done.
Yeah. So do you see what we just did? We just talked about a personalized approach, that there is no one size fits all. So for you, stillness is the way it's really effective for you to find that stillness when you are writing, for example. For me, I love to turn on some music. And I listen to music from the 40s, the Great American Songbook, the Standard. So, music of Gershwin, for example. So that is what does it. And then I will have a creative idea and incorporate that into my writing. So again, and that's in coaching, we listen to, what's right for one person and what will not be right for somebody else.
Mm-hmm. I love it. That's wonderful. We're bio individuals, what's going to be one person, I 100% agree with that purpose. So did you write a book or what are you writing?
Well, I had in the past. So I had specialized for many, many years before I founded Functional Medicine Coaching Academy. My specialty, one of them was working with people with panic and anxiety, probably because I used to have panic and anxiety when I was in my 20s. And I learned how to stop those panic attacks by using mind-body techniques like slow breathing and imagery and thought changing. And so for many years, I went around the country. I did a lot of workshops for some professional biofeedback, other professional organizations in psychology, teaching therapists and others how to use these with their clients. So I wrote a book for therapists on how to help people stop panic attacks. And then I wrote how to stop panic attacks by integrating all of those methodologies. And then wrote another book about the coaching process. What is this functional medicine coaching process and why does it work? And that was basically a book of stories of people who've come to us and trained as coaches and why coaching is so impactful.
Oh, that's cool. I love it. I love it. So what wisdom would you give the listeners? Like what types of message do you want them to take away from this conversation?
So I think that it's really important to identify what's right with you and not what's wrong with you. We just tend to get so stuck in what is wrong with us. Typically it's because somebody has told us there's something wrong, which can begin early in childhood. When I was learning disabilities, that was my original master's, and what was I doing all day long? Well, I was testing kids. I would put them through these horribly long, 8-hour batteries of tests, and what are we looking at? We're trying to find their weaknesses. We're trying to find, they didn't do well on this subtest, and what does that mean? And we're pinning a label on them and coming up with an educational plan. And then as a psychologist, same thing. Well, now we're giving personality tests, Rorschachs, and these, again, diagnostic batteries, or we're looking at, what label are we going to pin on somebody, and then how are we going to treat it? And so what I have learned and really advocate, and this comes from positive psychology, is when you focus on what's right with you and really emphasize that, then your performance is different. You become hardier, more resilient to all the obstacles and challenges that you're facing, and therefore you're functioning better. And what's happening then, whatever label you had is actually now not appropriate anymore because you're getting better. You're getting better through your strengths. And it's not only a mental process, but it is a physical process. When, for example, you are experiencing hope, that you are either expressing it through your language, you are thinking it, you are meditating about it, you have images that see where you're picturing yourself better or feeling well, then that process is actually inducing a physiological change, where in the inflammatory response is decreasing, you are then no longer in a sympathetic arousal state because the body is sensing, well, the threat's gone. Because where do those threats come from? They come from our thinking. So as you focus on your strength, as you talk about what you're grateful for, as you express love and kindness and forgiveness, all that is very important on a physical level. So that's the main thing I would want people to walk away with, that change through focusing on what's right, not what's wrong.
Yeah, I read a book a while back. You probably read it already. I think it might be called Strength Finders or something. Have you seen that?
Yes, Strength Finders 2.0, that's been a bestseller, and what is a great way to find out what your character strengths are, your signature strengths, would be through the viacharacter.org. And that is based on positive psychology, which is, it has the most research behind it. It is a research organization. And they have this free test that you can take. It only takes about 15, 20 minutes. And it's looking at what are your top strengths. And that is something that I think is really cool. They have a version for kids as well, because having strengths talk with kids is great. And this is the basis of what we do in our coaching curriculum, because as a coach, you come to coaching with your strengths, and then you help others identify those strengths as ways that as they build them, then that will lead to their well-being on so many levels.
I like that. That's actually how I came up with my brand. I hired a branding coach, and she said, go and ask everybody what their experience of you is. And everybody said, high energy, high energy, high energy. Well, little did I know back, gosh, that was like 8 years ago, maybe. Little did I know that I would be studying like Reiki and Qigong and Yin Yoga and all this energy stuff, because it wasn't what I meant at the time, right? So, okay, I'm going to have to dig into this website and see what that's all about. So I love that philosophy, because it's true. Like when somebody says, oh, you're dyslexic and you're not a good learner and blah, 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 then of course you're going to take that with you and think, well, I'm not a good learner, so why bother learning?
Absolutely. And this affects those messages have really impact how we live our lives. So thinking, here, especially, I think women particularly would say, I'm not good with money, I'm not good with math. And so that's one that is often tied in with, or I've had a learning disability. And there's so many ways that we can have these labels, but they don't fit under all circumstances at all times. And the beauty of these character strengths and learning what your top ones are is knowing that you have all of them. So researchers in positive psychology looked at what is good. How do we actually flourish? And they looked across religions and cultures and studied philosophy and psychology theory. And it boiled down to these 24 basic traits. They may have different names, but there's basically, you have all 24. Some you just use more often. They come more naturally to you. So, but you have all of them. So it's really cool to study them and look at ways that you express them. And maybe you can decide you're going to strengthen one or two of them. So, like self-regulation. Some people may say that, they can have good self-regulation in one area, but maybe like their eating choices, oftentimes they lose some of that self-regulation. So they can be built up. That's the cool thing about strengths. You can nurture them.
That's interesting terminology. I have not heard that, self-regulation.
So it would be, for example, so I have great self-regulation that, I was always able to study. I was always able to, in fact, but sometimes it didn't serve me so well. Sometimes we can overuse a strength, but I was always good at self-regulation when it came to being a student in school or doing what I was told, handing something in by the deadline. But when I was binging on sugar, when I was, in my late teens, early 20s, and I just went off to college, I wasn't applying self-regulation. I didn't have the say like, okay, time to stop eating that bag of M&Ms. That was an area where I wasn't applying it. So we have all of these strengths. We use them in different measures and different times, but we can address them. But sometimes we can overuse them. So I was overusing self-regulation and needed to let go and experience something else. So when I was in high school, I remember I actually turned down a chance to see the Beatles live. This was 1964. And I said to my friends, no, like, why are you going to this concert? We have a test on Monday. You have to stay home and study. So I didn't see the Beatles. So that was self-regulation that was overused.
Yeah, I'll say.
Yeah.
Wow, that's a once in a lifetime chance, I think, So that's cool. So tell us a little bit more about like approaches that people can do. Like, okay, so here's a question. There's a lot of issues with mental health in our world today. What is your take on all of that right now with just things happening? And how can people address it in a way that is going to take away any stigma but help them overcome those obstacles? Like earlier, you mentioned anxiety and things like that. I think that's a big problem, especially with the younger people.
Sure. So I think it really is connected to lack of connection, lack of community. So we get meaning and purpose when we belong. And so many people feel isolated and lonely. They don't belong to a community. And they may find social media, for example, or what's becoming more and more real and concerning is this digital addiction that we're living in our phones. And we're spending more and more time connecting that way as opposed to a genuine human interaction. Mm-hmm. And the more we build community, the more we have people in groups. That's why I was trained many years ago in facilitating group psychotherapy. It could be coaches going out doing group medical visits, groups like I'm in a book club. I knit, and for many years I was in a knitting group, and used to look forward to every Wednesday we'd get together and we'd chat about our kids and about issues and knit the whole time. Well, that was how people traditionally gathered and got support and got feedback and advice. They were in community. So wherever that may be, if it's in a church, an organization, having people that you get together with, whether it's to take a walk together or to just gather, and it's physically connecting as opposed to connecting remotely on social media. So that is really key to having joy in your life and love and good connection.
That is such a valid point. Okay, so I work from home right now, other than teaching at the gym, and being home, like I realized, I need to pick up an afternoon class so I can break up my day. And that way I'm, like I'll go to the gym in the morning, do my workout, come home, work a little bit, and then go back and teach another class and then come home again, to avoid that like lack of being around people and just recharging my battery halfway through the day.
There's something that is so profound, and there's been some research on that even these very casual touch points. So you go to the grocery store and you smile at the person who's in the checkout line behind you. You maybe start a little conversation with somebody there. That can be enough to just make your day. And so it's that connection that we're missing. And so the more you can build it in, and it doesn't, again, have to be this deep conversation with a best friend. So one of the things I love about going to dance class, and which has been studied as one of the key factors, so they looked at older adults and found that one of the best activities for brain health was dancing. And part of it is because it's so social. And I love, people in our class, we've become friends and socialize, talk to one another. And so the more you can find those kinds of activities and looking in your community, where are those organizations, what interests you, and then finding those gatherings. There's meetups and there's all kinds of ways now that we can find that.
I love that. That is going to be very, very, very helpful. I think for a lot of people to think about, because I totally agree that people get isolated, and it said, I saw a quote, you'll love this. It says, dance like no one's watching, because they're not. They're on their cell phone.
Exactly.
So I used to teach Zumba, and I loved it.
I love Zumba.
So I did like a Zumba hip hop, like a hybrid that I did on my own. It was Zumba, but it was just my style. And you know that song OMG by Usher?
Mm-hmm.
I dislocated my knee in the middle of class and collapsed and had to have knee surgery and blah, blah, blah. So I didn't go back. But after seeing J-Lo and Shakira perform at the Super Bowl, I'm like, oh my gosh, I want to teach again.
Yeah, it is just. I think that is key. And when many years ago, when I was doing practicum and internship, it was in a psychiatric unit. It was adolescents, and what was contributing? How did they get better? Well, it wasn't because of the medication they were taking or individual psychotherapy that may have played a role, but time and time again, it was the connection of being in groups, being with other kids in a group, feeling like, oh, I'm not alone. They have the same problems I do. Well, this is how they're dealing with it. Maybe I can do that too. It was just those finding common ground and being able to share your experience and get supported by a group. It's really, really powerful. And I think it is really helpful in this era. We do feel so disconnected. So there's a show, a new musical off Broadway now called Emojiland. And I'm biased because my daughter was the co-writer. And it is about this issue. How do you matter in a world where you're only expressing emotion through emojis? And how do you break out of that? And how do you have that true human connection?
Yeah, that is so true. So I love your ideas. So I bet you people can find things like that in their community guides, like different activities and classes and groups that gather together for different things. I love the idea about knitting. I mean, how cool is that? So then you get to I walk a lot with friends and we have that therapy, we call it, but that's another really great thing.
Yeah.
So what else do you think would help people? Like, is there anything else, like a message that from your heart you want to convey that you find to be a challenge for most people or for many people?
I was fortunate to be trained with the late, great Albert Ellis, and he was one of the developers of cognitive behavior therapy. And that is a very effective process that you use to help to change your thinking, because it's really not the reality, but it's how we interpret the reality. Something happens and then you may say, this is awful, this shouldn't have happened, I can't take it. And one of the things that we often distress and disturb ourselves about is embarrassment, shame. Like, what if I make a fool of myself? What if I get up on stage and I forget what I'm saying? Many people going into coaching, where they're starting a business or they want to get hired by a doctor, they hold back. And often it's out of fear of being rejection, fear I don't know enough. And when we boil it down to what does that really mean? What are you really fearing? They're fearing being embarrassed. Like right now, I can say, well, what if you ask me a question and I can't answer? Or I don't give an answer that's good to measure up. And so, when we came on those earlier, like I didn't realize I have a virtual screen and I thought it looked terrible. And you were saying, no, it's fine. And I wasn't happy. I had to move it and I'm still not happy with my backdrop. There's a glow behind me and it's projecting from the light outside. So I might say like, oh, this is awful. I can't stand this. Why didn't I do a better job preparing in advance? So we disturb ourselves by all these thoughts. And it really is often about being embarrassed. And Dr. Albert Ellis used to say there's no good thing that comes from embarrassment or shame. So what? So what if it happens? It's not worth dying over. Your life will go on. You'll still have what really matters most to you. And you won't remember this in 5 years. So letting it go. And often, like as we talked earlier about the social connection, well, maybe you've thought of something while you're listening, you think, oh, no, I could never do that. So for example, I just moved into a new community here in Scottsdale, and I was starting to know some people. I thought, okay, well, I'll have a party. I'll organize. And then I started, playing myself out. Like, what if I don't serve the right thing? What if I'd have too many people and I run out of food, and all the stuff that's like based on embarrassment. And can I really pull this off? I haven't entertained like this for many years. So what's holding you back? When you have an idea, when you want to do something, whether it's changing careers or having a different, whatever it might be, eating differently. Well, how's my family going to respond? And so notice those questions that you are presenting to yourself as roadblocks, and focus on, is any of it based on embarrassment, shame, fear of failure?
Interesting. That's something definitely to chew on, because that's hard to determine. You would have to really give that some thought about what's your roadblock and what's stopping you from moving forward in a certain modality, right?
Right. Yeah. And usually it does boil down to, how will I look to somebody else? What are they going to think of me? What if I make a mistake? What if I don't do it well? What if it doesn't work out? And so focusing on that and seeing, you might have some awarenesses about that. And then you say, how are you going to counter that with focusing on, again, can I override this? Can I just delete the embarrassment part?
I'll have to look into that. Is that something you guys teach at your school?
It's part of this process of rethinking and coming to a more rational thought process. Absolutely.
Wow, I'm going to have to look at your guys' curriculum. That sounds very interesting. It's always good. I always believe in constantly updating your skills, I just got certified yesterday for yin yoga. I finished my certification for that. But I'm always trying to up my game so I can better serve my clients.
Yep.
So that's really cool.
That is great. And it's love of learning. And, when you said, well, I have to look into that. So you were using a strength that's very, very powerful, curiosity. Being curious, wanting to know more is so essential, not only to the learning process, it's part of the wisdom strengths, but it's also one of the key factors in well-being, particularly as we age. When you lose curiosity about the world around you, people around you, then it is often an indicator of cognitive decline.
Well, I worry about that. My mom has Alzheimer's, and I always that's why I eat the way I eat and move the way I move, so I can avoid it. I do not want to age like my parents.
Yeah,
for sure.
Absolutely. Yeah. My mom had Alzheimer's as well. And so, yes, absolutely. It is a key motivator. So, and it often is, people can be motivated because they want to avoid something that's negative. And they can also be motivated. What is really important is, what do they want? So what I love to do is picture myself as older and vibrant. I want to still be doing yoga. I want to be able to still be as active as I am now. So I'm thinking that I'm going to age younger, and really focusing on that clearly, that this is what matters, so that I can continue to have this purpose in life to train health coaches and to be there for my family and loved ones.
Yeah, absolutely. Because so often people, I heard the quote, they age too short and die too, we age too short and die too young. Yeah. So wait, that's not the right one. I said it backwards. But basically what I'm saying is that they go to they start in their 50s or 60s and they start declining, and yet they live long, but they live sick instead of health. Right? Exactly.
Yep. Yeah, and I founded Functional Medicine Coaching Academy when I was 65. All of my friends were retired. And fortunately, I don't like to play card games. So I have too much zest to sit for a few hours and play canasta. So that's not me. So I want to stay vibrant. And part of that is to continue to learn, to have that curiosity, to keep up with all of the latest technologies. pathways that are out there so that I don't feel old, that, I want to learn how to continue that learning process, even things that are hard to do.
That is awesome. So you're telling me that you founded a school 5 years ago when you were 65?
Yes.
So you're 70?
Yes.
Holy cow. Okay, everybody needs a little bit more zest so they can resemble you. Unbelievable. I would have never, ever guessed that. That is awesome.
So, and I have to say that I feel better and I have more energy than when I was in my 20s. I remember, and I always took dance classes, but I remember, and dance classes are always like up on the second floor and going up a steep and narrow stairway. So I remember like not even being able to climb the stairs. Well, why was that happening? It was because I was eating sweets all day long. I would think I was a crazy raw vegan during part of that, where I was like so nutritionally compromised because my version of being plant-based was being bread-based and cereal and, all the carbs and sugary stuff. So no wonder I had no energy, and no wonder I was also in a brain fog most of the time. And so it really is, it's habits. And the more you practice, the more neural pathways are formed so that it becomes easier and easier to respond a different way, think a different way, and it's just second nature to do my physical routine as well. So I get up every day and I do handstands and shoulder stands and push-ups, and it's just automatic. I don't even think about it. It's like brushing your teeth.
Yeah, so you're going to be able to inspire all the people in Scottsdale that are your age to I believe it's possible to do a complete 180.
Absolutely.
Honestly. You're never too old. Like I saw one of my favorite people that I followed was this gal, well, I still follow her, Willie Murphy from Rochester, New York. She started lifting weights when she was like 73 years old, and now she's
yes, I
80.
Love her. Yes.
Yeah, she's inspiration to my tribe. Yeah. She can deadlift more than me, and she's 80 now. It's ridiculous.
Yeah. I was at the gym yesterday to class, and we were doing burpees, and people were dropping like flies, or they were doing them in the wrong form. I say like, yes, I can do this. I do burpees my friend Joe Polish from I Love Marketing taught me that, and it's to just do 30 burpees every morning, and so pretty soon then you're doing another 10, and it just becomes automatic, and that's, you just build a habit. But often I find that I don't even think about my age. And someone had said to me the other day, she said, it really sucks to be 70. And she was talking about all the health issues that happen. And I was like, okay, don't bring me no bad news. Basically like that line from The Wiz. I want to focus on, it's my intention to, I'm aging younger, I'm feeling vibrant. This is all that I know, and I'm not going to focus on, what's going to happen next year or something.
Oh, yeah, totally, because you can attract that into your life, just like you can attract what you want. I'm a big, big, big believer in the law of attraction. Like I just saw Abraham Hicks a couple weeks ago in San Francisco, and I learn all about the studies that they show with people, that how your brain and your mind and your thought process impacts so much. They've done studies that people just imagining playing the piano, they can see that their brain waves, their fingers move just like if somebody was really playing those same exact keys.
Absolutely.
It's amazing. So how can people find you?
They can go to functionalmedicinecoaching.org. And that's a website. They can find Functional Medicine Coaching Academy on Facebook, Functional Med Coach on Instagram, or me personally, Dr. Sandi on Instagram.
Awesome. So I will have all those links on the show notes, so it makes it easy for them.
Including fantastic.
So thank you so much for coming on the show today. It has been a pleasure, Dr. Sandi, to actually see you, and I just love all the amazing tips that you're leaving our listeners with too.
Oh, thank you. It's been a pleasure and high energy. I love it.
Okay, that was awesome. We had lots of golden nuggets of conversation on this show. I'm super excited and loved talking with her. What a doll. Can you believe she's 70 years old? Ugh, hard to believe. Well, if you're not watching the YouTube, you're going to have to check it out. So thank you so much for listening today. If you would like to come on the show, please contact me at tracy@highenergygirl.com. And please leave us a rating and review if you haven't already. Join our awesome Facebook group. And we will see you next week. Bye for now. This podcast contains the opinion and thoughts of its host and guests. It is intended to provide helpful and informative material on the subjects covered. All statements made on the podcast have not been evaluated by the FDA and are not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent disease. If the listener requires professional assistance or advice, please contact your personal medical doctor. Both host and guest specifically disclaim any responsibility for any liability, loss, or risk, personal or otherwise, which is incurred as a consequence directly or indirectly of the use and application of any of the contents of these episodes. Like I said, this is my opinion and I could be wrong.